Tipping Spears with Hannah Becker. Today's conversation promises to be an insightful one with remarkable guests. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a regular listener, we're so glad you're here. Our goal is to bring you closer to the innovative leaders and thinkers shaping our future. And today I am thrilled to welcome Chip Bircher. Chip is the Chief Technology Officer and Acting Head of Sales at SOFTwarfare, a cyber defense software manufacturer based in Kansas City. Previously, Chip led teams and organizations in the financial services industry as they navigated the challenges of organizational, cultural, and technological transformation. Before beginning his career in the corporate sector, Chip served in the United States Army for 28 years, where he was a senior leader and expert in strategic communication and information warfare, culminating as the director of the U.S. Army Information Operations Proponent and Force Modernization Proponent Center. Along the way, Chip was the founding director of the Army's Electronic Warfare Proponent, led operational and strategic level information operations and strategic communication programs in Afghanistan, and led the teams that defined and delivered the Army's capability requirements for cyberspace operations. Welcome to Tipping Spears, Chip.
It always sounds so much better when you write that. And then when you hear it read back to you, you're like, God, am I really that arrogant? Gosh, I sorry, but it's a pleasure to be with you, Hannah. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, I was super excited to talk with you. I guess we can just kind of dive in. Can you tell us where your story begins?
Yeah, so I'd like to say I had this master plan all along that led me to here, and I'd be an absolute liar if I did. Look, I was an Army brat. Okay, my dad was an Army officer. Was a foreign area officer specialized in the Middle East, so I kind of grew up in that world. My grandfather was in the Army for 20 years. My dad served 27 and a half years. I did 28, so I topped them both.
You beat him.
My oldest son was the smart one. He did 8 and got out. So it was kind of the family business, but there was never a pressure or any even discussion. Senior year in high school, the guy next to me was filling out an ROTC application on paper, in a pen. So that probably puts my age demographic in there. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm filling out an ROTC application." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, let's just go to the Army, go to college for free." Sounded good to me. So I filled one out, mailed it in, I had to go buy a stamp for it. And went home that night and told later that week or whatever I did, told my dad, "Hey, I applied for a scholarship." And he asked, "Why'd you do that?" Okay, well, thanks, Dad. But I wound up going to the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina. And it was the right fit for me at the right time. But I wanted nothing to do with the active duty Army. I was taking an educational delay. I was going to go to law school. I really was just not your typical ROTC person. And then I met Master Sergeant James Rowe. Okay, Master Sergeant James Rowe was my tactical NCO at ROTC Advanced Camp, and he had Special Forces Master Sergeant. I think he came out of Davidson College or Campbell, one of the schools there in North Carolina. He had been one of the original Sante Raiders in the Vietnam War, and I remember him we were sitting out waiting for the trucks to come in from the field to take us in after our last exercise. And he smoked this pipe, and he was sitting there and he goes, "You know, Cadet Bircher, I know you want to take an educational delay, but I think you ought to rethink that. You might be good at this infantry stuff." I went back to college, walked into my professor of military sciences office and said, "Sure, I changed my mind. I want to go active duty infantry. I'd like to change my branch selection." And he looked at me and said, "Bircher, what the heck happened to you?" May have been a few words differently. "Bircher, what the heck happened to you?" And I said, "Well, sir, I guess you could say I met Jesus, and he looks like an SF Master Sergeant." That kind of set me on that path that led me to where I am today. But that's how I got started. That's really how I came into the Army.
I love that story, Chip. I like the SF Master Sergeant being described as Jesus.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I know kind of was there mentioned the Master Sergeant, was there any kind of particular event or
Yeah.
person kind of beyond that point that served as kind of a catalyst for your career?
Yeah. So you think about critical events. So critical events and critical people put into your path. I wanted to initially do infantry, switch to military intelligence. I got I got branch straight infantry. So I did a branch transfer to military intelligence. Wanted to work as a tactical military intelligence officer. I wanted to go back to the tactical force and be an infantry battalion S2 and work my way up. My assignment officer, God bless her, sent me to the National Security Agency instead, where I ran across a guy named Jerry Demoni. Jerry Demoni was my brigade commander and became just this mentor and friend. And along the way, about the 8-year mark, I was getting ready to get out of the Army like a lot of captains were. And this was 90, late 90s. And Colonel Demoni, Jerry calls me and says, "Hey, a little bird tells me you're getting out of the Army." I said, "Yep, I'm done. I've done my 8 years. I'll get my GI benefits. I've got a good lineup, a good job lined up with a software company." I'm all excited. He said, "Well, listen, best of luck to you. I just wanted to let you know there's this new career field coming out. It's called information operations. I know you like computers. You should look into it." I looked into it. And in 1999, I became an information operations officer and spent the next 20 years of my military career doing information operations. So those events that and these people they could put in your path as you're going along, don't ever forget, don't ever take it for granted. Everybody has something to share and everybody has a story to tell. Sometimes stories are good. Sometimes you got to be kidding me. Yeah.
So I know every, journey kind of has its hurdles. Can you tell us kind of what some of the biggest obstacles were that you faced in your career and kind of how you
Wow.
overcame them?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenges that I faced in my career was being able to explain what it is that I did and
Yeah.
how I brought value to an organization. And it actually served me well transit throughout my career and even post-military. So switching over to information operations in 2003, the commanding general of Combined Arms Center says information operations is so critically important that he's going to make on the Army staff the G7 an assistant chief of staff for information operations. And that's going to be a position. I get assigned to coming out of the Command and Staff College in 2003. Major Bircher, gets assigned to the 25th Infantry Division as the Division G7. I pull up to the headquarters and parked in my NC, I think G1, G2, G3, all the way out to G7 parking spaces. Sure, I'm like, this is great. Let me park here. So I parked in the G7 spot, went in, reported in, and said, "Hi, I'm here to be your G7." And the G1 strength managers looked at me kind of funny and said, "Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you're going to work for the G3. Colonel Boisel, and he's got you down in the plan shop. So go down to the basement, the windowless skiff, and that's where you're working." Okay, so I would go down, sure enough, cubicle, typical majors assignment, and come out that night. And there's a welcome to the division letter on my dashboard, and it says, "Who the blank do you think you are? You're in my parking spot. Get the hell out of my spot, or I'm going to have your car towed." Signed, I won't, Jerry something, and assistant chief of staff for transformation. Damn. So that started with this idea of, okay, what is it you do? What is it you actually bring to the fight?
Mm-hmm.
I can articulate what an infantry platoon does.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows what a field artillery 155 battery does. Everybody knows what an SF-18 does, sort of, or they pretend to. Everybody knows what a tank battalion does. Everybody knows what an infantry does. What does information operations do? What does cyberspace operations do? We create maneuver space in and through the information environment to create effects, both physical and cognitive effects. That's what information operations is. So I'm in Afghanistan on the first order, director of information operations. I get told that General Abizaid, the CENTCOM commander, wants to come through and wants to talk about information operations. And he talked about obstacles you face. I'm like, great, another general brief. Because all the generals at the time would say, I don't know what IO is, but I need more of it.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know what it is, how do you know you need more of it? That's like saying I need more cowbell. But so at least you know what a cowbell is. So General Abizaid, I go up and it's midnight and you could tell he's living on the plane and it's just dead to the world, but it's late at night. I go up to the chief of staff's office. He's there, the chief's there, and introduce myself. And he says, okay, what do you do? I wanted to talk about information operations. What do you do? Well, sir, I'm in charge of synchronizing the 5 core elements of information operations. Give him the straight doctrinal leg. We synchronize, we plan, coordinate, synchronize, and assess the psychological operations, electronic warfare, computer network operations, military deception, and operational security in order to create effects on the battle space that support the accomplishment of the mission. It's like, okay, I got it. I read the doctrine. What does that really mean? I stopped. Nobody had ever asked me that before. Everybody had just kind of glossed over that point to that point. Okay, thanks. Next. So I stopped and I said, okay, well, sir, my job is to sell a product. The product I'm selling is a safe and secure Afghanistan, able to defeat the reemergence of terrorism. I know that's my product. That's because that's what you and the president said are the successful end state. Just like Nike, I do target audience analysis. I do market share research. I do marketing. I do advertising. I do focus groups. I do everything necessary to identify my key audiences, who I need to convince to buy my product, and I sell my product to them using tactical maneuver forces and advertising and marketing techniques. Things like key leader engagements, things like cyberspace operations, things like controlling the electromagnetic spectrum. Once my audience is bought into my product, I do post-market research. I do focus groups. I do polling to make sure my product continues to meet that perceived need of that audience. And if there's a difference, I'm not meeting that perceived need, then I can adjust how I deliver my product. The difference between Nike and us, or Nike, is that if I find the competition on the battlefield, I can have some men with beards remove that competition. Nike gets into trouble if they do that with Reebok salespeople. The guy looked at me and said, that's the first time anybody's ever explained that IO to me and something I understand. Great. Tell me about your campaigns. So just it was that understanding, or that the biggest catalyst, and really the biggest obstacle is that, look, and we're seeing this today. I mean, this is today. Our nation is at war today, right? We are in a cognitive war, being managed and manipulated against us by what I call the 4 butt heads. Okay, we are Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran are using cyberspace and cyber warfare tools to go after our agriculture, our economy, our infrastructure, all of our nation state tools, everything that makes us a country, our information environment, in order to erode us from within and in order to deny us our economic viability. Well, that's really hard to, how do you defend against that? You can't build a battleship. Okay. That's part of the challenge of being a cyberspace operations person, or an information operations or cognitive warfare specialist, or non-kinetic warfare. I don't care what you call it. And I spent more time in doctrinal conversation arguments with really well-meaning people over the definitions that would go into the manuals. And at the end of the day, it's really about creating effects. It's about changing what people believe, perceive, and ultimately do.
Yeah, I love that description, Chip. That's just such a phenomenal definition, and then also examples. I feel like all too often, kind of what you said, people, they're only pinging on what they see. So they can see a battleship, they can see a tank, they can see a missile. But to your point, cognitive warfare is 24/7.
Yeah.
that doesn't stop at our borders. And it's going all the time, and the effects can be so detrimental, and really, lasting. So I really appreciate your definition. That's a definition that's always been hard to get something that people can understand, and you did a great job with it. So
We'll see if it sticks. Yeah. Yeah.
So I know, 28 years in uniform, in the private sector. Can you, throughout all of that, you've been very, front lines of kind of the information in the cyberspace. Can you tell us what new developments around, cyber or information operations that you are most excited about today?
Yeah, most excited or most scared. So I think what the thing that excites me the most is this understanding that people are starting to wake up and smell the coffee, that we really are in a competition. We used to call it operations other than war, like OOTWA. Okay, that was the buzzword back in like the early 2000s. Then it became operations short of war, gray zone competition. Really it's the non-kinetic warfare, or any of these different cognitive warfare, any of these different methods. But what I'm starting to see is a coalescence around the understanding that we have to change our approach to defending our nation. Right? Organizations like the Information Professionals Association that I'm on the board for see that. So unpaid political advertisement. If you are going to be in DC the 3rd or 4th of September, there's going to be a kick-ass conference. Sign up for it. I encourage you to come up. You would enjoy it. But the Information Professionals Association, what we're doing to advance the cause of cognitive warfare, I think is really exciting. Organizations like AFCEA, people like you and what you're doing. I mean, this stuff didn't exist. Advocates like you didn't. If they did, it was just at the true grassroots level, and using platforms like this to educate and inspire and to inform people, ultimately influence people, is really cool. But I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say AI changes our world every single day. Quantum scares the crap out of me. It also kind of gets me a little excited. But and agentic AI is already the big thing. I think what I'm seeing a recognition is on the corporate sector, and I'll separate this a little because the military has always been security hyper focused. On the corporate sector, because when I retired from the military, I did go directly into the corporate world, and I had nothing to do with the military for 7 years, other than my role with the Information Professionals Association and continuing to talk to old friends that would let me buy my beer. But on the corporate side, it used to be risk and compliance were kind of the redheaded stepchildren. Nobody wanted to talk to them. It was a necessary. It's kind of like doing your annual OPSEC training in the Army, right? It's just a necessary evil. That is becoming more and more a thing of the past. You are seeing where CISOs, the cyberspace or the computer and information security officers, are starting to have a seat at the table. People are starting to listen to them. So that is because of the threat from those 4 buttheads we talked about, and how they're going and using their tools and feeding their training and their tools, their attack tools into organizations or groups that are willing to go after the corporations, whether it's for ransomware or IP theft, or just to get inside the system for 0-day attacks later down the road. All of that is part of the warfare we're under now. So more and more, this public-private partnership, this public-private conversation is beginning to happen. And it's not just a public, the military, I'll say this, and I'll probably catch crap for it. Sometimes the military is a little arrogant. Okay. We think that everybody should, when we talk about public-private partnership, really, it used to be what we meant was private industry, come give us your IP and come give us and help us solve our problems. That was a partnership, right? That with organizations like the Defense Innovation Unit and how that is changing in small tech companies like SOFTwarfare, and how we're able to change that conversation and that dynamic is pretty exciting.
So I know you've kind of touched on, kind of the realities of cognitive warfare. Can you tell us a little bit more kind of about your top concerns for, national security, kind of what keeps you up at night, maybe what about the 4 butt heads, is especially concerning?
Okay, so so my number one, I guess my top concerns, I mean, what keeps me up at night is the fact that 86% of the hacks last year, according to Cisco, were through, let me pull it up because I've got it here. Were through social engineering attacks. Okay,
Wow.
they were stolen through 86% of the attacks occurred because of stolen credentials. Okay, whether social engineering or just or brute force attacks, man in the middle attacks, all of that through social engineering. Over half of those had 2FA, two-factor authentication, or multi-factor authentication in place.
Wow.
And they just didn't use it.
Wow.
Okay, so that keeps me up at night. And when I met this, when I switched over to join SOFTwarfare a couple of years ago, it was because I'd seen the tech and I saw it and it's like, this stuff's good stuff. I wish we had it. When I was in the military instead of a CAT card, using biometric authentication, using multi-factor authentication, liveness testing, device authentication, continuous authentication, moving to that level, step-up level of authentication and access control, so that cybersecurity professionals can actually control people at the user and the session level, is where the future has to go for information security. What concerns me the most is that, and I said this earlier, we are a nation at war. Okay, Clausewitz and the SAMS graduates in the Army, or the SAS graduates in the other, will talk about centers of gravity, right? You gotta have a center of gravity. I believe the center of gravity is data and information. That is the center of gravity. The key terrain today is your identity and access management. You control that. You control who has access and authentication, and you can control where your data is and what's happening to it. I believe that's the holy grail for what China and Russia are after specifically. I believe North Korea and Iran are more interested. They're looking for intellectual property as well, but I also think they're frankly looking for money. Okay, they're looking I believe most of the ransomware attacks are coming out of North Korea, Iran, or their proxies. Okay. We think of proxies, we talk about proxies. Proxies in the military, in a military term, is like, oh, well, that's the Houthis in Yemen being a proxies for Iran, firing into Israel or firing into US, or that's a proxy. Okay, we don't necessarily think of it as a group of gamers, 16 and 17-year-old Anglo-Saxon Protestant kids in London using tools and techniques taught to them by Scattered Spider to attack insurance companies around the world and get paid for it. I haven't had a clearance since I left the military. Because of my gap, I no longer have access to classified information, right? This is all open source. You can go to CISA, to their website, and read about this. Okay, that's the environment that we are in today. And being able to deploy multi-factor true biometric authentication to defend your systems, that's got to be on the top of everybody's mind. Being able to understand who these threats are, how they're going after us, and why they're going after the American private sector, that's part of our nation's conflict. And we're starting to see those conversations occur. So maybe it really will be a partnership one day.
I like that. Yeah, the disruption and then kind of destabilization potential from these, 16 to 17-year-old proxies that aren't even on our radar as like, oh, that's not necessarily the top 10 terrorist groups that come to mind when we're
Yeah.
talking. That's a
No.
great example of how this space is kind of changing and what we're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Chip, how has technology reshaped the way that we approach security and defense? I know you've seen,
Wow.
several decades of reiterations of different postures and different approaches and
Yeah.
attitudes. And I was just curious, kind of, how do you think technology's changed or evolved
Yeah.
some of that?
So I'll tell you another story. In 2015, I was getting ready to retire, and General Mingus, Jim Mingus, who's the current
Mm-hmm.
Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, came to me and said, "Hey, I need you to do this. I need you to not retire. And General Brown was Bob Brown was the CG at CAC at the time. I need you to lead this project. We're going to look at Russia, and Russia had attacked Ukraine. This was the second invasion of Ukraine, not the third one that we're on now, but Crimea was the first, and the eastern Donbass was the second. We want to look at what's happening in Ukraine, what Russia is doing, and how they're using this Russian new generation warfare, and what that means to the future of the Army." So we had three teams headed by the commandant of the infantry school. But three teams. There was a strategic team, an operational team, and a tactical team, and I led the operational team. So we were the first group of Americans to go into Ukraine. Went into Donetsk and into the Donbass and got to see what was happening there. And so think about from this perspective. We're driving out and I'm in the back of a van, in civilian clothes, driving from Kyiv to Donetsk, and the driver pulls over into a farm field. I'm thinking, okay, so this is how it ends. I think I saw this movie. And he gets out and says, okay, put all of your devices in here. Everything electronic goes in this bag. It was a Faraday bag. And what Russia was doing was they were using anything that emitted, anything that sent any emitter as a target reference point.
Wow.
So you turn on your cell phone, artillery rounds come on top of you. You turn on your cell phone, it gets tracked back, and they're able to figure out who you are and start sending texts to your family, expressing their condolences for the loss of their soldier.
Wow.
Sending the Ukrainian soldier pictures of his children sitting at the bus stop saying, "I hope they make it to school today."
Wow.
That's sort of psychological warfare. Yeah. And we think of it as just electronic warfare, PSYOP, or computer network operations. It's not. It is actual warfare. It just is warfare. It is blended and crossed civilian and military boundaries. Then you look at that approach, and what we went and saw and we're seeing this in America now. So this is 2016. We go and meet with a volunteer unit, and they wanted especially me to meet their because they knew I was a former intel officer, to meet their young kid. And this is like coming out of a movie. So they take me into the back room, go around the corner, and there I am in the computer lab. And there is this young man that is exactly what you would expect a computer drone builder to look like. So just picture that person. And he wanted to show me. And what he was doing was he was building purpose-built drones on the spot for operations. They would tell him, "Hey, we need a night capability, night vision capability, FLIR. We need a picture. We need a high-res camera. We need thermal, whatever the optic device is." He would 3D print the body, order the right engine, usually came from Sweden or the US. The optics package usually came from US, Sweden, or Germany. DHL would ship everything in, and in less than 48 hours, he would have a working drone. He wanted to show me that he was also experimenting with how to use them as a recoverable weapon system.
Oh, wow.
And he was having problems because he was trapping RPGs or AT4s and it would burn up the fuselage. But they're working through that at the time. Now they're so cheap, you just crash them in. Kamikaze drones, or you don't have to worry about recovering. But that was in 2015, 2016. All right. And I walked away and we put it in a report. Can you imagine the effects on the American defense industrial base if we went to a purpose-built, so much for the 7-year acquisition process. So that sort of concept and that sort of technology advancements. Now you look at how we are using edge computing, compute power at the edge, and deploying it on these boxes in support of special operations missions. And we can layer in the security pieces necessary to provide true AI compute capabilities without being remote in a DDIL environment or in an air-gapped environment, where that tactical action team at the smallest level has the same compute power that my analysts had in 1995 at the National Security Agency.
Wow.
But they needed a Cray computer, 4 of them in series in the basement to do that. Now we can do it on a small, single server blade. That sort of change in technology and being able to understand we got to move faster. Innovation's got to be faster.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some great stories to kind of illustrate the pace of innovation that's occurred. I think, I tell folks the only thing constant about technology is that it's constantly changing.
Absolutely. You know it well.
Yeah. So Chip, what career advice do you have for kind of the next generation of professionals who are interested in, a similar career path?
Yeah. Don't take yourself too seriously. Okay. People care deeply and about you, and they want to help you, but understand that it's all about return on investment in the corporate sector. Okay. Don't underestimate the fact that everybody is in sales. Okay. That's something that, I'm not going to be a salesman. Okay. If you're married, if you have kids, if you've ever done a briefing to a council of colonels or a general officer steering committee or an op order briefing, you're in sales. You've done it. Okay. Your whole purpose of sales is to influence behavior. That's what you're trying to do. Understand that credentials matter, but delivery matters more. Okay? Being able to deliver and meet objectives. Don't be afraid of knowing what KPIs are, what your key performance indicators or measures of performance are. Don't be afraid to tackle those and then to see how they get into measures of effectiveness. Be open to conversations and don't be afraid to networking. Mentorship works beautifully. Mentorship and sponsorship are 2 different things. Understand the difference. And as you get ready to transition, if you're going to transition, whatever path you take, be able to articulate what it is you want to do. Well, I want to lead a team. Okay, what kind of team? A little more articulation there. Okay, I want to drive transformation. Okay, for what? What industry? Look into these things, and then be responsible. Be responsible for yourself. There is no assignment officer that's going to throw ideas at you for your next the next opportunity. You got to figure out your own path.
Those are great words of wisdom. So are there any kind of resources, books, organizations that you found, particularly useful in your own career journey?
Yeah. So my 2 favorite, and I am not on the staff of either of them, MIT's Sloan Business Review, the Sloan Business School out of MIT, because it is a great resource. I don't think it's that expensive, and it gives you a great, very technically focused view, very technology-centric focused view of business leadership and business requirements. Second one is Harvard Business Review, because it is more of a people and organizational focus on business requirements and how to do better. The 2 of them go well together. I've had subscriptions ever since before I retired. If you are going to go into the defense industry, understand that there's AUSA, FCA, Armed Forces Communications Electronics Associations, Information Professionals Association. They're all just a wealth of information and the wealth of contacts, right? Don't be afraid to go to happy hour. Don't be afraid, don't shy away from things like that. It's not beneath you. That's how you make contacts, and that's how you set yourself up for future success. Right? And the last one is look at what other people are reading. I mean, don't just follow military leaders on LinkedIn. Okay. Yeah. What's the guy from Apple reading? What's Tim Cook reading? What's what are pick somebody like my two favorites, Simon Sinek and Patrick Lencioni. Those are my two favorite authors. Neither of them had spent a day in the military.
Those are some great resources.
Yeah.
So looking back, what stands out as one of the most rewarding experiences of your professional journey?
Wow.
I know that's
yeah. So that was that on the list? Okay. So actually probably the best experience I had was running the information operations proponent, the information operations career field. I get a chuckle every day now when I see guys like Steve Santa Maria or just I can't even think of any of the others but they post, hey, I just graduated, Harris Odyssey, I just graduated from the Army War College, or I just finished I just came out on the 06 list, or I came out and so IO was a small career field, and we have 450 people in it. And as the proponent director, I had the ability to shape careers, and I tried not to get involved in 06, 04, major and captain assignments, but I did get actively involved in lieutenant colonel and colonel assignments. And seeing where some of these young captains who would come in and say, I'm the smartest guy that's ever walked the face of the earth, and I know IO better than anybody else, and seeing them grow and mature, and where they are now leading the information operations or the information advantage fight, or the information warfare. Again, I don't care what you call it, just do it. But leading that charge going forward now, like Rob Teal out of the joints out of DC, and Ryan Nason there, and all these young who were young, now they're the old colonels, and that growth path, that capability, that they are so much smarter and so much more capable than my peers and I were, and they are just doing what's right for our country. That's kind of cool.
That's very cool.
Okay? And I would say that translated into my civilian life of recognizing as a manager or as a leader, seeing where, hey, this person has done a job. She has been the best deputy. She's been the best whatever. What's preventing her from being promoted? Why aren't we promoted? Well, we got to get her into an education path, a leadership program. I can find one of those. Let's get her in that. Guess what? She gets promoted. And then having that growth pattern, that growth opportunity for people, and seeing them, and they're still kicking ass and taking names, and that's you talk about legacy. Between that and my kids, that's my legacy.
Cool. Then kind of the final question, Chip.
Yeah.
So looking forward, I know there's a lot of gloom and doom about cyber warfare and cognitive warfare, and but looking forward, what gives you hope in terms of kind of our future?
Gen Z. Okay, Gen Z and the alphas coming in behind them. I don't think they're going to stand for the mess that the boomers and the Gen Xers have left them. The millennials, unfortunately, are stuck in the middle. But if you look at the generations to come, they're bright, they're inquisitive, they're exactly where they need to be. They are so much smarter and so much more capable, and they grew up in a wired, technologically enabled world, right? They don't know life without the internet. They don't know life without a smartphone. They don't know life without quantum. The alphas aren't going to know life without AI. Okay, so that sort of growth and that sort of path going forward, that's what gets me most excited. we have a program with a local school district, with the Shawnee Mission School District, and the professor, the educator that runs it, Jessica Tiggle, was one of the National Cybersecurity Educators of the Year for the U.S.
Wow.
And we have a program where she runs the cybersecurity training program for the high school. Okay, there's middle school programs now for it as well, but I think we have 4 interns on our staff right now. So 10% of our workforce are interns. We're a small company, and they're high school kids.
Wow.
Okay, we have 3 full-time employees that started in that path. They stayed with us, and now they're full-time, full-stack engineers or front-end engineers, back-end engineers. That sort of development process, that sort of feeding the engines is what gets me excited every day.
That's awesome. Y'all are really investing and empowering the next generation. That's so encouraging.
If you look on SOFTwarfare's website or on our LinkedIn page, twice this month, we've hosted with Barton Community College and with an organization called Enterprise KC, a nonprofit cyber education program, 2 cyber camps out in Great Bend, Kansas, which is out in the western Kansas, that has focused on 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Wow.
2 days cybersecurity, some boot camp for these kids to help them get into the mindset of this is what the realm of possibility is for my future. Yeah, so we invest in the relationship with Barton Community College, with the North Kansas City School District, their CAPS program, their cybersecurity program up there, and then obviously Shawnee Mission School District. It's all part of our understanding that this is a long-term game. We are in the defense of our country for the long term.
Yeah, it's so inspiring to hear. Y'all are walking the talk.
Trying to. Some days I just want to take a knee and drink some water.
Well, thank you so much, Chip, for sharing, your insights, your experiences today. Your contributions to our nation have impacted so many.
Hannah, thank you very much. I'm so glad you reached out, and hopefully I didn't bore you too much, but keep doing what you're doing. What you're doing matters more than I think you realize. You are truly making a difference. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, Chip. I enjoyed talking to you, and excited to get this out on the podcast.
Well, thank you. And if anybody needs a question, needs help, if you need some MFA, give me a holler.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tipping Spheres. We hope this conversation sparked new ideas and challenged the way you think. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and we'll catch you next time with another exciting guest.